Good morning and welcome to another edition of Money Talk with Melanie. We are broadcasting live this morning from beautiful Cape May County, New Jersey via SHR Media and High Plains Pundit Talk Radio. I am your host, the business diva Melanie Collette. And we have with us this morning, We have with us this morning Tom McLaughlin, who's the founder and managing partner at CapFigure, and he's also the managing director at Global Sports Inc. And we're going to talk crowdfunding for small businesses. And crowdfunding is a relatively new idea, a new way of funding, of gathering funding for all kinds of different projects. But we're going to specifically talk about how you can use crowdfunding in business. It's kind of like the the latest trend in funding for small businesses and startups. So I've actually been looking for an expert in this area for a little bit now, because it's kind of, like I said, it's kind of a trending kind of thing that's going on, and I thought it was an interesting topic. So Tom is an expert in all things crowdfunding, so we're going to talk to him about that this morning. But before we get into that, a little bit of housekeeping. If you would like to know in advance who is going to be on Money Talk with Melanie, one of the best ways to do that is to follow me on social media. You can follow me on Twitter at Money Talk Mel. Or you can like my Facebook page, which is at Money Talk with Melanie, which, by the way, is now at 400 likes. So thank you very much for that, for everybody who has liked the page. I appreciate it. Also, more housekeeping. If you would like to be a guest on the show, you can do so by giving me a call at 937-756-6639. I've been blessed to have a lot of really good guests on the show, and there's more to come. I was at the Christians United for Israel conference yesterday and on Monday. Met a lot of good people there. Was there with the exceptional conservative Kenneth McClinton and Lonnie Poindexter of Lion Chasers with Lonnie Poindexter. We were all in the press box together for the conference. So I should say press room together for the conference. But a lot of good information, a lot of good people there, and just a good affirmation of why we should be standing for Israel, not only from a political standpoint, because they're literally the only democracy in the area, but also from a spiritual standpoint. So it was encouraging and enlightening, and I also met some great people that I'm looking forward to having on the show. So that's just just one of the things that I get to do, that I get privileged to do in this role as a talk show radio person. So it's just it was really a blessing, and I was happy to be able to go. What else do we have to talk about? There's a new, I just released maybe last week, I think, since the last time I've talked to you. The Horn News. I have a new article, and I believe, here's the thing. We don't anybody who writes a little bit or whatever, or writes for anyone, oftentimes what happens is you submit the article, and then the editor will go ahead and give it a title. So a lot of times, sometimes I forget what the title is, because I didn't write the article. I didn't write the title. I just wrote the article. But I believe it's entitled, I'm actually going to look it up right now. I believe it's entitled 7 Things That the Press is Ignoring. Bias Alert, I think, is how it starts out. And seven things that the mainstream media has been ignoring. Here it is. Bias Alert. Trump moves 7 Trump moves the media ignored. That's the name of the article. But I did write it. I just didn't write the headline. But that's the title of the article. Bias alert: 7 Trump moves the media ignored. If you haven't checked that out, go to thehornnews.com and check that out if you would. Some pretty meaty stuff in there. Most, a lot of it can be found if you look for it, but it's really the media's job to keep us abreast of all those things, and they haven't been. So that's what that article is about, and it's on the Horn News. Okay, housekeeping out of the way. Not totally out of the way. I would be remiss if I did not thank our sponsor, Eva Rosenberg of TaxMama.com. Check out her website. She has two fantastic books. One, Deduct Everything, and the other one, Small Business Taxes Made Easy. They're both award-winning books. Make sure you pick those up. And when you go to her website, she will answer your tax questions for free, and she's an expert in all things taxes. And we actually do have another sponsor pending. Very excited about that, and I'll let you guys know as soon as the ink is dry on that deal. But there's another sponsor coming up very soon, so I'm excited about that. Okay, let's talk about news. Today's Money Talk news report. I'm very super excited about this, and I know this probably should not be number one, but on my list, and it's not in my notes, but I basically kind of like over prepare, and then play it by ear as to what I'm actually going to, however I feel, however the Holy Spirit moves me. That's what I do. But this is just plain old selfish. Had to announce that Amazon is now doing meal kits like a la Blue Apron, and there's some other ones out there. And if you don't know what a meal kit is, it's basically, they put the meals together for you and send them to you, and all you have to do is literally cook it. There are some, Blue Apron, I believe, is supposed to be like extra healthy. There are some other ones out there, and then some are just straight up, we send it to you so you can cook it. Like, I think Omaha Steaks actually has a version of that as well, and they're just complete meals. And they send them to your door already complete and done, and all you have to do is cook it. Sounds like a plan to me. So, but now Amazon is doing it. So everybody's in the marketplace is kind of freaking out, because let's face it, when Amazon starts something and they start getting involved, it's pretty much game over. Little concerned that Amazon might be wearing itself thin a little bit, but I'm ready to try the Amazon meal kits. I'm ready to go for that, because I'm a busy woman. All you busy people out there. Okay, so now for some more important stuff. Let's see. The healthcare bill got pulled yesterday, and I know that I've said a ton of times, really, Republicans, what are you doing? And I'm just going to say it again. Really, Republicans, what are you doing? So now they're talking about just doing a straight repeal, which is not what we signed up for, not at all. So not happy about that. Not happy about that at all. We promised a repeal and replace. It should be done at the same time. You've had 7 years, guys, and you've done nothing, and gals, to be fair. But I'm disgusted that they haven't come up with anything. Truly, it's ridiculous, but that's the deal. But President Trump, being who he is, has called everybody to the White House for lunch, and I'm sure that he's going to be trying to twist some arms and get these legislators in gear, particularly right now the Senate. But because the House did pass something, but if you know anything about how these processes work, you know that the final bill will look nothing like what the House passed, and it probably won't look much like whatever the Senate finally passes. It'll be some concoction, some blend of the two, probably. But we'll see what happens with that. But it's our health care. It's really important, and they need to work something out for real. That's neither here nor there, but keep your eye keep your eye out on that, as I'm sure everyone is, because it's going to affect all of us, even if we're not on the Affordable Care Act, or we're not on Obamacare. Whatever happens is going to impact us. It's going to impact the country financially. It's going to impact the country financially, and which means that it's going to impact all of our pocketbooks and impact our doctors. So keep that in mind. You're listening to Money Talk with Melanie. This is your business diva, Melanie Collette. On the other side of the break, we'll be talking to Tom McLaughlin about crowdfunding.
I understand that congressional members are elected to be our representatives, but they sure don't act like it. Hello, I'm Ron Edwards. On today's page from the Edwards Notebook, one of the duties of Congress is to govern on behalf of we the people. But what do? On one side, you have the likes of Chucky Schumer, Al Franken, and way out there waters, all who have openly vowed to prevent Donald Trump from achieving his lofty goals of protecting us from vicious illegal immigrants, cut taxes, etc. On the other side, Speaker Paul Ryan and other liberal Republicans disdain President Trump and have no problem allowing the Democrats to get away with disrupting the president's effort to improve America's economy and help her back to the road of greatness. Many, if not all, of the congressmen and women campaigned on the promise to repeal and replace Obamacare, but rather than do what they promised, they would rather help prevent the Trump administration from successfully restoring American greatness. To put it bluntly, their personal hatred of President Trump is more important to many in Congress than fulfilling their promise to we the people. They must get out of there. I'm Ron Edwards.
Sponsored by the Tri-County Liberty Coalition.
Who likes paying taxes? Nobody. That's why Eva Rosenberg from TaxMama.com wants you to pay less of them. Read Small Business Taxes Made Easy and learn how to set up a business plan that minimizes taxes, the tax benefits of different forms of financing, spot and fix errors in the 1099s, legally increase your deductible expenses with better record-keeping techniques. Don't let the IRS squeeze you out of every penny. Start deducting today. Visit TaxMama.com. TaxMama.com. That's TaxMama with one M.com.
From the war front to the streets of our nation's capital, men of faith, Dr. Michael Jones, the underground professor, and Kenneth McClinton, the exceptional conservative, bring both constitutional gravitas and spiritual perspective on today's issues to the most influential Christian urban talk show, 9:05 p.m. Eastern, Thursdays. It's a new day on New Day, Black and Red.
Okay, and we're back. You're listening to Money Talk with Melanie. This is your business diva, Melanie Collette. And I'm very happy to have with us this morning Tom McLaughlin, who is the founder and managing partner at CapFigure, and he's the managing director at Global Sports Incorporated. And he's going to talk to us this morning about crowdfunding for small business. And I forgot to mention in the open that the 5 minutes of personal finance today is going to be how to go a month with no spending. I was supposed to cover this last week, and I went over with my guest on the show that day, so I popped it back on the schedule today. So we're going to talk about that today for the last segment of the show. Just a little bit of background on Tom McLaughlin before I introduce him. At age 20, he began his career on Wall Street as a leveraged finance investment banker at Bank of America Merrill Lynch. And he worked alongside the brightest minds in the financial industry, advising corporations on capital raising, debt restructuring, leveraged buyouts, mergers, and acquisitions. He's born and raised in the New York metropolitan area. He's a lifelong Yankees and New York Giants fan. We'll forgive him for that. And he started his first hustle with baseball cards, collecting, trading, and memorializing the back of them at the age of 5. So he was just born to be an entrepreneur. He's a graduate from Lehigh University with a degree in finance and accounting. And without further ado, Mr. Tom McLaughlin, good morning.
Good morning, Melanie. Thank you for having me on.
Thank you for appearing on the show. I appreciate it very much. Is there anything that I left out of your bio that you would like to add, that you'd like to tell the audience about?
No, that's about it. My most recent venture is Global Sports Inc. It's a sports crowdfunding platform we just launched. But yeah, I mean, let's dig into crowdfunding. Let's talk about it. It's something that your audience will want to hear about. It's the next sort of revolution in finance, and I think it can help a lot of your viewers.
Absolutely, I agree. And when I finally found you, I mentioned in the open this morning that crowdfunding is something I've had an interest in quite a while, and I've actually been looking for an expert to talk to about that. The other thing is, and I'm just mentioning this to you because you're in the field, and maybe you know someone. Maybe you can email me later, or someone in my audience. If you know an expert on Bitcoin or alternative currencies, you? Did you say you?
Me.
Oh,
Yeah.
I'll have you back on the show.
It all.
Oh my goodness, I'll have you back on the show to talk about that, because I've been looking for an alternative currency expert to talk to about Bitcoin and other forms of alternative currencies that are available now. So, I mean, they even have.
Well,
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I probably can hook you up with someone better to talk about that, but that's something that I have an interest in as well, and I've been following a lot. So yeah, I'll definitely hook you up with somebody to talk about that, because as you mentioned, that's another huge topic that a lot of people need to learn about.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I don't know why I haven't thought of this earlier to, like, I don't know, ask the experts that I already have on the show. They probably know other experts instead of looking myself, but it just popped into my head. I'm like, he probably knows somebody who is an expert on the whole Bitcoin alternative currency thing, which is a big deal. Yep. But everybody doesn't want to hear. I'm not an expert. I know about it, but I'm not an expert. I want to have an expert on to tell the audience about it. But right now we're talking about crowdfunding. First of all, for those who've never heard of it, explain to the audience what crowdfunding is, if you would.
So crowdfunding, basically, you've probably heard of crowdsourcing too. All it really means at its most basic level is just taking contributions from a large group of people to achieve a goal. And so what we're talking about in terms of actual crowdfunding is when somebody wants to launch a product or a business, they can take small amounts of capital, a large group of people to actually finance that product or that venture. And this is really an amazing revelation, because traditionally the route to launch a business or a product in the country was you come up with an idea, you go to wealthy venture capitalists, you ask for a huge sum of money, but you have nothing to show them to prove that this might work. And then you hope that it'll work. You have to then market it to an audience. So that script needs to be thrown out, because that doesn't work anymore. Those venture capitalists won't give you money, and you'll never know if that product or business or service resonates with people. So what crowdfunding does is it allows you to actually finance that product or that business directly from individual Americans. You can get feedback on the product, and you can actually finance your business directly from the people you're going to end up marketing to anyway.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. That makes a lot of sense. Now, is there? I don't even know what I want to ask you first. Okay, so is that there are, at least from my understanding, a couple of types of crowdfunding. You could do crowdfunding for a product, or there's also equity crowdfunding. Can you explain the difference? And if you are thinking about using crowdfunding, how would you determine which to use?
Sure. So you're absolutely right. There are two main types of crowdfunding. One is product, or some people call it perk crowdfunding. That's usually the first step in the process. So if you have an idea for a product, that's usually where you'll go first. So you'll come up with an idea. Let's say, to keep it sports related, I have an idea for a new type of skis. So what I'll do is I'll go and I will run a product crowdfunding campaign where I will actually sell those skis to my initial audience. They'll pay me a portion of it in advance, and then I'll deliver that product to them once it's ready. So it's almost in the same lines as the sales process. You're just using the crowdfunding campaign to sort of raise the money to actually build the product. Then the other main type, as you mentioned, is equity crowdfunding. And equity crowdfunding came about, it started out about a year ago in this country. And what it allows you to do is it allows private businesses, so smaller businesses, it allows them to sell shares to basically everyone in the country. So anyone can invest and buy equity ownership or, a claim on the profits of a private business for as little as $100.
Oh, wow. That economical, like that reasonable.
Yeah, I mean, certain campaigns, certain companies who run an equity crowdfunding campaign, maybe they'll have a higher limit, maybe they want $1,000 sort of contribution, but it's a revolutionary step because throughout the history of our country, the only people who were allowed to invest in private companies were the 0.01%. And
right.
Equity crowdfunding, that threw that totally out the window. So now, let's say someone from my family, as an example, my mom was a school teacher. If she knew that Facebook was going to be a huge company, and we're talking way in its early days before it went on the New York Stock Exchange, imagine if my mom were able to invest $1,000 in Facebook stock back in 2003. The returns are life-changing. And so, not only from an investor perspective, this opens up a totally new asset class to people that I think will have huge implications, but it also allows businesses to raise money from a whole new group of people. So it's good for everyone.
Absolutely. And I love what you said about, about being able to, that it used to only be reserved for the 0.01%, a la, the rich, continue to get richer, et cetera, et cetera. But, really is like capitalism on steroids in the truest sense of the word.
Absolutely. And, the real, all of this is a development of technological change. That rule was put into place originally where only the 0.01% could invest in private companies. That was put into place during a time when you had people who would, call up grandmothers and say, hey, you want to invest in a gold mine in Arizona, or
right.
We have a snake oil company. And,
right.
And there's no way for people to know, you could send them $1,000 and for all it's some guy. But now with the internet, you can see any business and information is readily available. So those choices should be allowed to be offered to everyone.
And here's the thing that's really also good about this that I can see, when you're thinking in terms of product crowdfunding and you're thinking in terms of ways to improve your product, I mean, that's free market research in addition to, getting money for your startup or to actually create the product. You're also getting, like I said, you're getting free market research, which can be very expensive if you just do it outright. But by doing the crowdfunding, you're getting feedback, like you mentioned earlier, from the public. Now, in earnest, how is that done? We mentioned that it's a technological advance, and we've mentioned kind of the banking aspect of that. But what do we mean when we say that you can get feedback from the public. Like, how does it work from a logistical standpoint?
Sure. So there are crowdfunding platforms that are reserved for equity side, and in the traditional sense, those are a lot like investment banks. But we'll talk about the product side because it's a little bit easier to sort of navigate. So what I actually do at Global Sports Inc., we are a crowdfunding platform, and so we work with companies to create a campaign page where they tell people about their product, and then they put different levels of contribution amounts. So in a product example, let's say, this ski company that's launching a new ski, they have 3 different levels of products they're going to roll out. So let's say their entry level model is $500. So they will launch that campaign on a crowdfunding platform. There's our platform. There's, people are probably more familiar with Kickstarter or Indiegogo.
Yes.
And you'll market to, your market audience. So for that company, it will probably be, you'll want to market to skiers. And then the skiers, they see the message and they go onto the platform and they contribute with a credit card, PayPal, Stripe. And the entrepreneur who runs that page, they collect, the money from each of these groups of people, and then they deliver the product. So it's, I think one thing is that a lot of times the language can be intimidating in financial transactions like this, but it's very simple. It's another outlet for entrepreneurs to sell their product. And it's just as simple as any other site. Like on Amazon, you go on, you put in your credit card, you get the product. Crowdfunding in its pure sense is very, very similar to that.
It sounds like it. Now, a question came to mind while you were talking. So the people who donate to these entrepreneurs, are those donations tax deductible? Because what kind of finance person would I be if I didn't ask? Would you know if that's considered like charity, or how does that work?
Yeah, that's a great question. So in a lot of cases, yes, they are. It depends on the business. Obviously for charities, there are a lot of crowdfunding charities that are just seeking charitable donations. Those are 100% tax deductible, just as you would make a contribution to any other charity. In the product cases, there are a lot of creative ways to write that off on taxes. I mean, when you think about it, you're basically, you're contributing to entrepreneurship, and so you can kind of phrase that as making an investment. So when it comes time for tax season, you can write off that contribution.
Oh, I need to talk to the tax mama about that. I don't know if you heard. One of my sponsors for my show is Eva Rosenberg, who is a tax expert. She has a website called taxmama.com, and she knows anything and everything about taxes, and specifically for small businesses. But that is one question I've never asked her, and I think I may have to inquire and have her back on the show and talk about that, because that I would have thought that the answer would be no, because normally any investment that you made in a company would not be tax deductible. That would just be a risk that you're taking. So that's interesting.
Yeah. No, I would actually love to hear what she has to say as well. I'm not condoning somebody to go on a crowdfunding site and try to rack up tax credits. In the right situations, though, I think that there are examples where you can definitely do that. Especially, let's say it's on behalf of the business that's buying a product to use for business purposes. In those cases, I think it's a lot safer. But I would love to hear what she has to say as well, because the reality is this is sort of a new area, and nobody knows 100% one way or the other yet. So,
well, listen, it's technology, and you know, and full disclosure, I've been a computer teacher for the last 7 years. I've been a teacher in the computer science department at Rowan University for the last 4, and I can tell you that even, you know, what I only teach, occasionally I'll teach computer programming on the college level, but I am not fantastic on the college level. I'm great on the high school level, not fantastic on the college level, but I teach advanced Microsoft Office, which I am fantastic at on the college level. But I end up in the computer science department. But you know, the technology changes all the time. I mean, even from semester to semester, I have to tweak what I'm doing with Microsoft Office as Microsoft moves and morphs and improves, and sometimes not improves so much. But but you know, I have to continually keep my learning curve up, because you know, the technology changes so fast, and it's no different than what we're talking about here with the crowdfunding. So
yeah, and you know, that when you get an expert on to talk about Bitcoin, Ethereum, and altcoins, I think that will be a great primer for everyone on what is going to be the next technological wave as it relates to the financial services and the financial industry, because that wave of revolution is already here and it's coming. And so if there are, you know, small businesses or entrepreneurs in your audience, they're going to want to know that, absolutely, or else they're going to be left behind.
Absolutely. Well, I'm back and forth to DC fairly often. And I actually just got back last night from DC, and they have Bitcoin like ATMs in DC.
Yeah.
So yeah, and I'm like, okay, and I've been meaning to talk about this for a while, but when I saw that, I'm like, I really need to get on that, and I'm probably going to have to do it a few times, because like you were saying, it's such a broad and fast moving area of finance.
Yeah, it's amazing. I mean, I don't know how we don't want to go on a tangent here, but if you think about it, the way that my grandparents financed and bought their house 60 years ago in America, that process is still almost the same way. They have to go into a bank, they have to sign hundreds of papers, they then have to talk to a loan officer. And so, you know, while other industries are taking technology and moving rapidly ahead, finance, law, accounting, a lot of those areas really just, they're still very much the same as they were 50 years ago.
They really are.
That's going to change. That's going to change.
That's true. You know, I taught, in addition to computers, I've taught finance, accounting 1 and 2 on the high school level, and financial literacy. And, you know, I always start off by teaching my students the basics of accounting, which, like you said, has been consistent for years, does not change. And then I teach them the bells and whistles about automation and, you know, using apps and whatnot. But if you don't know the basics of accounting, which I suspect will still remain the same for quite a while, it'll just be different how we use it. The applications and the technology aspect mean nothing, because you won't know when you made a mistake, which is what I always had to explain to my students. Like, why did you make us do balance sheets by hand if we could have done it automated? Because you need to know what you're doing.
Absolutely.
Yeah, you need to know what you're looking at. You need to know if you debited when you should have credited, or or something. So, but
well,
go ahead.
That's great that you teach accounting at the high school level. I think one of the things that needs to change in our country is, I think, financial literacy needs to be taught from a much earlier age. Because,
amen.
You know, even people I work with on Wall Street who have gone to Harvard and Yale, I mean, they can't even balance their own checkbooks. And, you know, that's because nobody teaches it. Nobody thinks to teach it. And I think that causes a lot of problems on the personal level and then at the country level. And I think that's something that needs to change.
Absolutely. I could not agree with you more. They teach it in New Jersey. It's mandatory, believe it or not, where I live. but
Okay.
but they teach it in 9th grade, which things like how to buy a car and how to balance your checkbook and, how to fill out your W-2 are irrelevant to a 9th grader. To a 12th grader,
Yeah.
not so much. But you know what I mean? A 12th grader, it's totally relevant. So that, like the public school system tends to do and our bureaucracy tends to do, try to do a good thing, but just not doing it efficiently and effectively.
Absolutely.
But listen, we're up against the break, but when we come back, I want you to talk to the audience about a couple of things. One, the regulations that might be involved in soliciting using the crowdfunding method, and also whether or not you can use more than one platform, because you mentioned that your company is a platform, and of course there are others out there. So I want to talk about those two aspects on the other side of the break. You're listening to
Absolutely.
Money. Great. You're listening to Money Talk with Melanie. This is your business diva, Melanie Collette, and we have Tom McLaughlin on today, and we're talking about all things crowdfunding for small business. We'll be back in 5.
Hey, it's Jersey Joe. Hook Reaver, Common Sense. You can catch me every Wednesday night, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on shrmedia.com. That's every Wednesday night, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, shrmedia.com.
The best late-night conservative talk show in America, Sackheads Radio. And listen, there are no people better on the air to give you the best in conservative talk than Sackhead Sean and Sackhead Clint. And we're working on immigration papers for a certain other guy who happens to work here too. For those who are tuning in around the world to the best in late-night conservative talk, Sackheads Radio. The best late-night conservative talk show in America. In America.
And in this web was a large, I'm pretty sure it was the biggest spider I've ever seen.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
Hey, it's Sean from the Sackheads Radio Show. Also one of the owners here at the SHR Media Network. Are you opinionated? Have you ever wanted to do your own show? Have you ever heard somebody like the Sackheads and go, yeah, I could probably do that better? Well, now's your chance. Send me a 5-minute clip at sackheadsradio@gmail.com, and maybe you can be part of the SHR broadcasting team. sackheadsradio@gmail.com.
Times are dark. The people are misled by corrupt politicians, lied to by establishment media, and deceived by the false messages of Islam. A nation looking for direction needs a guide. It needs a man with a cane. I'm Dave Milner. Join me on Spreaker, SHR Media, Pundit Press Radio, and YouTube through the SHR Media page for a different kind of commentary on the unpleasant blind guy. Because the truth is not always pleasant.
Hey, this is Mim from Freedom Fest, the world's largest gathering of free minds. Join your friends from SHR Media at the beautiful Paris Resort in Las Vegas, Nevada, July 19th through the 22nd for 3 amazing days of liberty-oriented discussion, investment advice, and the Anthem Film Festival. It's our big 10th anniversary, featuring keynote speaker William Shatner and Freedom Fest favorites, including Steve Forbes, Jim Rogers, Lee Edwards, David Boaz, Doug Casey, Dinesh D'Souza, John Stossel, Lisa Kennedy, Grover Norquist, Peter Schiff, and many more. Don't miss out. Register at freedomfest.com for $100 off the regular registration rate when you use the all-caps code SHR Media.
Featuring right thinking from a left brain and doing the job the American maggots won't. BZ is fundamentally changing America one diaper at a time. Just when safety pin manufacturers are running out of metal for the diapers of the leftists, where the speech is free, but the drinks are not. The Bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon can be heard every Tuesday and Thursday night, commencing at 11 p.m. Eastern and 8 p.m. Pacific. where pushback is a requisite art form in and of itself. Let your ossicles be truly liberated when you listen to the Bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon, only on SHR Media Network. No ferrets were harmed in the making of this ad.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
Okay, we are back. You're listening to Money Talk with Melanie. This is your business diva, Melanie Collette, and I'm on with Tom McLaughlin this morning. And we are discussing crowdfunding for small businesses. He happens to be a finance expert, but particularly in crowdfunding. He is the founder and managing partner at CapFigure, which is a crowdfunding platform. And so before the break, I was asking you, Tom, about the general solicitation regulations that are involved in crowdfunding, and also whether or not you were allowed to crowdfund on more than one platform, or if you had to do it, if you were relegated to just one.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's unpack that a little bit. So on the side of the solicitation and the regulation, as we were talking about before, there are those two distinct buckets, right? There are the campaigns where you, as someone raising money, will end up delivering a product to somebody. That's called product or perk-based crowdfunding. And then there's the equity crowdfunding, where your company is selling shares to individual investors. And so as it relates to regulation, on the equity side, it is very regulated. Even though our country is making these advances, when you sell shares in your company, even if it's, what you would consider a smaller business, you really need to be on top of everything. You're going to have to end up filing paperwork with the SEC and FINRA. The platforms who become regulated within that, they also need to be, approved by FINRA. So that process, there is a lot to sort of consider. And what I would say is, if your internal practices as a business owner, if you don't have that cleaned up, you don't have a good accounting practice, you don't have a good management team, then I wouldn't even explore that area yet. But as it relates to more common kind, which is the product crowdfunding, the regulations are a lot more lax with that. So, you don't need to file any paperwork with any government regulation to run a traditional crowdfunding campaign. That being said, what we've seen on a couple of platforms, the bigger ones throughout the years, is that they'll bring campaigns on the site looking to raise money, and then they just don't deliver the product. And so that's fraud, and you can and probably will be prosecuted for doing that. So, in terms of regulation, it's a lot more lax when you're just delivering a product. But that being said, it's like, you got to use common sense and, just do your homework and know what you're doing before you get in.
That makes a lot of sense. That makes a whole lot of sense. And you answered a question I've been thinking about over the break, which is, what if someone runs a crowdfunding campaign and never delivers the product? Like, then what? And go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah. That is the reasonable next question. And we've seen it on the big platforms. You know, we've seen it on Kickstarter and Indiegogo, where companies end up raising a decent amount of money and then they just don't deliver the product. And so in that case, those people then, in most cases, are prosecuted. You know, to me, what we do at our platform is we try to engage with the people raising money, and we go through a process of, you know, 1 to 2 weeks where we do a great deal of due diligence to see if it's a viable sort of product that they can actually deliver. So, you know, to me, the problem is some of the bigger platforms get a little bit greedy and they let you sort of start a campaign when you probably shouldn't. So, yeah, that's one of the unfortunate dark sides of this whole practice. But for the most part, and in about the 7 or 8 years since crowdfunding has been sort of mainstream, there are only a few cases where that actually has happened.
Oh, I would think it would just give you such a bad reputation, and it's online. I mean, it doesn't go away. You know, and people, I would imagine, who have invested in that business are going to talk about it and spread the word all over the internet. And anyone who's in business knows that you're only as good as your word, you know, and your reputation. Your reputation shot, you're done. So.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, in any industry, there are always people who are looking for some sort of short-term gain or fix to the system. But those people over the years who have done that have been found. And in most cases, the people who made contributions who didn't receive their products, in most cases, they end up getting refunded. You know, yeah, there are a couple cases where that didn't happen, but for the most part, you know, it's a very honest community of entrepreneurs. So, you know, that's something that we take in very seriously as well.
I like that. Now, before I let you go, this is another important question I want to ask you. How do you maintain the proprietary rights to a product, especially a product, when, you know, the intellectual property aspects, all the while soliciting funds to, you know, to finance it? How do you do both and protect the intellectual property?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a good question. So I would say for most businesses and most, you know, first-time entrepreneurs, there's this fear that, you know, we can't tell people what we're doing because they're going to steal the idea. And then there's the real threat, as you're talking about, where I run a business and I actually do have true intellectual property that cannot be told to people. It can't be found out. So in those cases where you legitimately do have something to protect and you don't want it to get out there, then honestly, crowdfunding probably is not your best route to raise money, just because it does kind of contradict with the entire purpose, you know. That being said, you know, there are parts of businesses where people have some intellectual property, but it's not core to the business. As long as that doesn't impact, you know, the product you're showing to people and your ability to deliver it, then you can go ahead and do it.
Right. Okay, that makes a lot of sense. Okay, before I let you go, in 1 minute, tell the audience where they can reach you, if they what it is specifically that your business does, if they're interested in using your business. How can they get in touch with you and find out more information?
Yeah, absolutely. So the main venture I'm working on now is called Global Sports Inc. We're a crowdfunding platform that connects sports fans with sports products, sports charities, and athletes that are looking to raise capital. Our platform is live at globalsportsfunds.com. You can also find us on Twitter at Global Sport Fund. Or, you know, you can just put my name in Google. My email address is pretty public. So, you know, I try to connect with as many people as possible. So if you have any questions, feel free to reach out. You know, I'll see what I can do for you.
Absolutely. I love it. Thank you so much for being on the show today. It was very informative, and I'm going to have you back and talk about some other financial stuff. So you're an expert in all things finance. Thank you for having me on. Thank you so much. You have a great day.
You as well. Bye.
All righty. Bye-bye. Okay, you're listening to Money Talk with Melanie. Tom was fantastic. Tom McLaughlin. You're listening to Money Talk with Melanie. This is your business diva, Melanie Collette. We'll be back in one moment.
Chicana Ranch is involved in helping youth through the snags along the pathway to adulthood. The last 8 years have created greater challenges. Having a president to parade perversion to our youth has generated the need for us to ramp up our character learning 100-fold. Today's youth are confused, and our goal is to give them a fresh understanding of creation, moral clarity, respect for authority. In short, restore absolutes and boundaries. Boys are born boys and girls are born girls, God's design. Right is right even when no one else is doing it. The Exceptional Conservative Network is underway to raise $10,000 to help advance this mission. Together, let's reverse the confusion aimed at our youth. Don't be a spectator. Go to our donation portal and make your financial contribution now. Your gift goes toward helping youth get clarity, moral clarity. Thank you.
And speaking of Pastor Donovan Larkins, Money Talk with Melanie will be broadcasting from the Protecting Innocence Leadership Forum right there in Ohio. I'll actually be visiting Chicana Ranch. I'm very excited about that. And I'm going to be there among many pastors are going to be there, and concerned citizens, people who are concerned about protecting children, and of course under Pastor Larkin's leadership. So I'm very excited about that. That is in Dayton, Ohio. Let me give you some more details about that. That's taking place in Dayton, Ohio this weekend on the 21st at, it's called the, and the event sponsored by Chicana Ranch Ministries, Content of Character Series, Salt and Light Council, Urban Family Communications, the Douglas Leader Institute, and it's hosted by Pastor Donovan Larkins, like I said. Some of the pastors who are going to be there, Pastor Dumasani Washington, who is a regular on Lonnie Poindexter's show, Lion Chasers with Lonnie Poindexter, Stephen Broughton, Walter Moss, Caesar LaFleur, Ralph J. Chittums of The Right Guy, that wonderful show. He is on SHR Media as well. Quite a few. It should be a really fantastic weekend. There's still time to sign up if you go to Facebook.com and go to Protecting Innocence. Check that out. Also, you heard Ron Edwards' commentary over one of my breaks today. His show takes place 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time and 3 p.m. Pacific Time here on SHR Media on Monday, Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Friday. And I am going to be a guest on Ron Edwards' show very shortly. I believe it's tomorrow night, if I'm not mistaken. To look at my schedule. I'm going to be a guest on Ron Edwards' show, so I'm pretty excited about that. Check him out, though. You think his commentary is stellar? You should check out the Ron Edwards Experience talk show. You're listening to Money Talk with Melanie. I want you all to remember that this is very important because it's your money.